Greetings, traveler.
Hey everyone, let's have a look at the new Murloc and Undead cards. As always, we're going to touch on the removed, changed, and returning cards first, but you can skip ahead to the new stuff if you've already seen it, or if you don't care. The big one here is we're losing young Murkai, which is going to essentially kill off a whole archetype of Murkai Magic Fin, where you do the end of turn triggering of the spell. But we still have Rarran, which can activate Magic Fin during the combat, which can still do some fun stuff. You can farm oil with that, oil. Or you could even do the strategy where the Murloc gets the 2020 spell, and then you can turn the whole opponent's board into 2020s, well, yours too, and then you play some token stuff. So yeah, there's still some hope for Magic Fin. And then here we're losing base skill, which is the big one. Base skill kind of comes in and out, but every time it's in, it's such a huge part of end games because it's so good at both scamming and counter scamming, because you can pull venoms from your hand, but you could also just use base skills to remove the venom from the opponent's board so your minions don't get venom. So it's like a very high level end game card. So, you know, it's okay to see that go. Then talking about Magic Fin, we have a subtle change here where this says this casts another card instead of casts another card. This is so that the Magic Fin is the source of casting the spell, not you, the player. So that has consequences for the Naga we talked about earlier that grows for every tavern spell you've cast. Also, I presume for like Nala stuff where you're no longer the source of casting the spell, so it won't trigger Nala. Although I'm not 100% sure if this already triggered Nala. I can't remember. Either way, that's the change. Then Expert Aviator is now pull the highest attack minion, but loses the +1/+1. That is a bit of a nerf for the early game, but for the late game, this is nicer because it's going to pull presumably your best minion instead of just the one that's on the left. So a little easier to navigate that. King Begurgle. Right, so on my big video where we talked about all the change cards, I talked about how Begurgle was the once respected 5-drop, huge card to cycle. Now it's like, we'll make it a 3-drop. Just shows how power creep has really set into the game. Now, it used to be a death rattle too, but most people didn't really play it for the death rattle. It was just a battle cry. And I think Begurgle actually originally was only +2/+2, so it already is better. But yeah, that type of playing Murlocs where you're just cycling and buffing your board, it's a bit outdated when, you know, we did have something like, for instance, the Magic Fin comp, which was adding thousands of stats to your board end of turn. Something like a Begurgle cannot really compete with that with, you know, end game status. Diremok Forger gets a nice change, so this is likely also because base skill was removed. Now you are you can have a full board, and as long as a Diremok is not dead by the time one minion dies, you now summon your highest attack minion from your hand because you have the space. So that's such a nice little line there when you have the space. Very similar to the Terran hero power. It's why it's so good. It's just good, right? Not losing value. It waits until you have the board space and then you summon that. So presumably you could have a few Diremoks on your board, but it says highest attack minion, huh? So would it only summon the highest attack minion, or if that one gets summoned, would it summon the second highest attack minion? Not 100% sure on that. I would assume that you could have two and that they would pull two different minions, but not 100% sure, because technically the highest attack minion has already been summoned, so something to be clarified when we are playing. Either way, this is a nice, elegant way of not killing off the hand buff archetype, because obviously if you're buffing something, you probably want to also summon it during the combat, but this way they don't have to keep base skill in the game. River Skipper is back. That's some sweet economy on tier 1. Fantastic minion. Pretty much a must buy. Incredible if you have a 1-cost hero power. You could buy that on turn 1, sell it, and then use like Maiev hero power, Rafam hero power. Just wonderful minion to have. Winter Finner, this this is decent to play on turn 3, where you probably want to hold something with quite a bit of health. The dream is like another Winter Finner. You hold that and then you get some triggers, then it has some nice stats, and then put that on the board. But you are weaker on that one turn, so you probably lose turn 3. The biggest downside is if they have a 5 damage minion and one-shot it, then it really sucks. Then it wasn't really worth taking the damage. But overall, not a bad buy on turn 3. Murgler is also back to take advantage of hand buffing that we can do. Painter is back. Feels like he wasn't gone because we had Time Warp Painter, but regular Painter was not in the game. And then we have the new Murlocs. First up, we have Deep Water Chieftain. It's got a battle cry and a death rattle to get a Deep Water Clan, which is this spell. Gives a minion +2/+2, and then your Murlocs, so AoE +2/+2 again. This is just a classic example of something that gets significantly better if you have spell power. So any way to farm up spell power, you get this thing, you cycle it with Bran, or it's next to Rylak, or you've got Titus, and then you farm a lot of these guys, you've got spell power, some big boosts. So yeah, fun little thing to use when you've got the spell power online. And then we have a new baller type minion where we have Mama Murgleton and Papa Murgleton. They feed off each other, where whenever you play one, all future Murgletons get stronger. So the battle cry gives you 3 attack, and then Papa gives you 3 health. And if you, let's say you've played a Mama and then you play a Papa, the Papa's going to give your Murlocs 6 health. So seems fun to try and triple these and get big value, or a big tempo in the mid game rather. And then with Bran, this should stack up quite nicely, right? If you've played 10 Murgletons, or let's say you're on your 9, you've played 9, so you're on your 10th. Now you're doing 30 health to your board. So then you play it with Bran, it's 60 health to your board. Really depends on how easy it is to get more of these. So if you have a good engine, if you have good economy, this could be fun to do. For full endgame, I'm not 100% sure, but as it is a 4-drop, it's harder to find than Baller. But yeah, at least a fun thing to try, and I hope it works out. Then we have Cousin Urgle. End of turn, you get a Mama and a Papa. Sorry, you get a Mama or a Papa. So, but if you get Drakari, you could have both, or 2 of the same. So yeah, like Golden Urgle, you get both, right? So you Golden, you get both. So Golden Urgle with Drakari, you get 4 end of turn. Sounds fun, right? And then you have that with Bran, get some good value. So similar like the end of turn Baller minion, but that was a Time Warp minion. This one is just a regular minion that you can find. So it's gonna be a lot easier to have. So Urgle with Drakari. If you have Golden Drakari, you'll get Golden Murglers, but I actually don't know if that's better because then you play fewer of them. So you only play 2 of them if you golden them right away. So similar like Baller, you probably want to play them separately. So probably better to just have a regular Drakari, or if you, let's say, have more than one Golden Cousin Urgleton, yeah, sure, then, you know, you can just Golden Drakari and get more. But you'll have to do the math on what gives you the most just amount of Murgletons, because it's preferable to not golden them, I would imagine. Then let's talk about the removed undead cards. We see no more Carapace. That is probably the biggest one here. And then, you know, some support undeads, really. We see that Forsaken Weaver gets changed from +2 attack to 1 attack. Now, you are able to spam Tavern spells quite easily, and it being 2 attack made sense in a higher power creep situation where you have anomalies and time warps available. So this to me indicates that either we're going to have an easier time spamming Tavern spells with some of the stuff that's coming back, like Butcherings. We'll talk about that in just a second. It's also going to be easier to get higher damage, right, if you use Butchering already. So maybe they tried this in the playtest and they said, it's a bit too easy to get high attack, let's tone it down a little bit. Either way, you know, it's a nerf to the Weaver. Skull's coming back. That's just a 2-drop. Doesn't really matter much. Mummifier, that's the way we get Reborn. There's also Grave Robber, so you can kill off the Mummifier during the Tavern phase, get it back, and then get Reborn on a random undead. So fun to do that. And then here is the Drustfallen Butcher. Avenge 4, you get a Butchering. So triggering this twice during one fight is solid. Then you have 2 Butcherings. You can use Butchering on, say, Mummifier to get permanent Reborn. You could use it on a tier 6 undead to suddenly get +6 attack on all your undead. So that is the equal of playing 6 Tavern spells if you have a Weaver on your board. Quite nice to have. And then let's talk about the new undead minions. But before we do so, if you guys appreciate these videos at all, it's super, super nice if you could quickly hit subscribe. We put so much time and effort into these. My poor editors are just suffering to make all this, the slides and then editing, and like it's some assets are built from scratch. Like it's a lot of work. So super appreciated if you could hit subscribe. If you're already subbed, a like will do very, very much appreciated. All right, back to the new cards. Well, Old Soul is a way to get triples, but I'm not sure how or at what stage of the game you want to have that, because if you buy that on tier 2, you can't really hold it the whole time, I would imagine, but maybe you can, right? Let's do a little math. Ugh, math, right? If you got like 2 boneheads on your board, that's 6 minions dying. So let's say you have a bonehead, and then on turn 3, you can get another bonehead, and you like Chef's Choice and Old Soul. 6 minions die, then the turn after, you'd have to play 3 more minions. So basically like 2 more tokens, and a turn after that, you could level, play this as a golden minion and get a triple reward. Now that is like highly optimal situations, but you could be Terran, you could be Lich King. So I could see it actually. I could see it if you have a really good token start, especially if you have hero power support to generate more bodies on the board. You could actually hold this in your hand early on. Now later in the game, if you already have a full board, it's easier to just hold this to farm triple rewards. So, you know, especially if you have a little bit of leftover gold, you can just say, oh, I'll just put an Old Soul in my hand, and then I'll use that to fish for a 5 or a 6 drop later. Dustbone Devastator is our essentially a Nubarak replacement. It's a rally that gives your undead +1 attack. Same as a Nubarak, but a Nubarak you could reborn and Titus. Now you can reborn this too, but that doesn't guarantee it's actually going to attack. Whereas a Nubarak, like Taunt Reborn with a Titus, will farm a lot faster. So this is likely just going to be a little bit of early game support, where if it survives once or even twice, where you get to proc it, it's going to do a lot more than a Nubarak early. So decent undead early on. It's also 2/6 stat line, which will also buff itself. So after this is buffed twice, this is now a 4/6, which is completely respectable for a 3-drop. Plague Runner will be our true new Nubarak, where it's Death Rattle. Your undead have +2 attack this game. But also, if you can use Butchering on this, or if you can Grave Robber this during the Tavern phase, you're getting +4. So if you have a Titus, we assume press 8. So that is a nice way to farm tons and tons of attack on your undead, where you have Titus on the board, you buy this, you use Butchering on it, or even ideally you use Grave Robber on it, because then you just get it back and you can keep doing that quite often. So seems like an interesting way to farm the attack. You can even reborn this first, then kill it off, and then you've got multiple that you can either kill off or keep on your board for a turn, milk the extra undead attack during the combat phase. And then our last new undead is Skeletal Strafer. At the end of your turn, give your minions +1/+1, and Avenge 2 improves this permanently. So it is a 5-drop. If you combo this with Drakari, like how good would that be? Avenge 2, we're going to, I guess, project that we could trigger this at least 4 times if we have a good setup. So after one fight, it's going to give 5/5 to your board end of turn. You have Drakari, that's +10/+10. Could farm this up. Like, how much would I want on this? The thing is, it doesn't really fit the undead archetype, because undead is all about farming damage on your undead and then just playing a bunch of tokens. Whereas this guy doesn't give your tokens more damage, it just does a flat buff to your board. But generally, you want to go either all in on one and all in on the other, because you don't really care if your board is like, you know, let's say 70, or it's got like 20 health. But 400 damage, right? You prefer to have like the 400 damage. And it seems if you're going to invest resources into Strafer, you're not investing resources into getting more damage on your undead. So I'm not sure if this makes sense, but I might also be vastly underestimating this. I have been known to do that in the past. Generally, I've got a pretty good idea of what's going to be good, but of course, you're going to be wrong sometimes. So I'm not sure on this one. It feels to me that is fundamentally a little different than what Undead wants to do, but who knows if you have like 2 Goldens and Drakari. But the issue with that is then you're buffing your board, and then stuff isn't dying anymore, and then you're not feeding the Avenge. So it kind of like hinders its own scaling. It seems weird. I'll put it like that. maybe we can make it work, but it seems like something Undead don't want to do. They rather would just have low health, high attack minions than to have some, you know, mediocre stats. But that's my first take on this. All right, everyone, that was it for the Murlocs and Undeads. As always, if there's anything I missed, any cool synergy you want to point out, please let me know in the comments. I'll be reading every single one of them. I'll see you there.